Tony, it's been a whirlwind 10 days or so, but you finally got your man. Roberto is here. Tell us what attracted you to him as your new head coach.
As a football club, we've always got to be prepared for all eventualities, and we knew Graham wasn't going to be here forever. We certainly weren't expecting it at this time, and certainly mid-season was far from ideal. We've always aware of potential head coaches. We never know who may be available, at what time, where they are at their clubs, if they are at clubs. But Roberto, we've been aware of for a while. He's done a really good job at the different clubs he's been at, quite different at different clubs. But for sure, the 3 years he was at Sassuolo were extremely impressive. And the year, or the 2/3 of a year, he was at Shakhtar, which unfortunately got stopped for the reasons that we know. The style of football he plays, the bravery he shows for his players to play out from the back, play through the press, and trying to find the right head coach which matches up to the players that we've got in our squad was really important. And he ticks all those boxes, and we're extremely excited for him to join our club as head coach.
How aware would you have been of him during that time at Sassuolo and Shakhtar? We hear about, obviously you're constantly looking at coaches around the globe, across Europe, domestically, but would you have been watching his games and analysing what he was doing even back then?
Yeah, I wasn't watching games from Sassuolo, but I'm just aware of what's going on. Not so regularly, just need to be aware at all times of the sorts of head coaches that we may be looking to get in if a vacancy ever comes up. And it's only when we realise that Chelsea were very interested in Graham, then we get into overdrive to really look into a lot of different head coaches in a lot of detail to ensure that we get who we believe is the best man for the job.
There seems to be a lot of similarities with Graham, but there's some differences as well. Certainly seems his own man.
Yeah, he's definitely his own man. He's a very, very competent head coach, and there's good reason for that. He gets the best out of players. Players believe in what he wants from his teams. He improves players, so those are big similarities with Graham. But for sure, they're their own. They are different coaches. There's no doubt that Roberto's teams are involved in much higher scoring games than other head coaches. And that's just the way he is. He's got his philosophies. I think it will work really well with the set of players that we've got.
And those philosophies, will they be allowed to blossom here as such, and will he continue in that vein, or will it be a case of trying to match that to what the team are already doing and have achieved in the last 12 months especially?
Roberto is aware of Brighton and of Albion and where we've come from. He's aware of our players. The Premier League is different to the Italian League and obviously to the Ukrainian League. So he will need some time to adapt. I think he will be very good at adapting, and exactly how he uses his philosophies and what styles he uses is very much down to him and his coaching staff, and they will work out, I'm sure, what is very best for our squad of players for every individual game.
Real threat here for the Albion march. Tipped away, Gross is there. It's two! Gross again!
And just a word on that squad of players that you referenced there. They've absolutely been fantastic this season in terms of what they've done on the pitch. Perhaps not had the credit in recent weeks since Graham left. How good a squad is Roberto inherited?
Well, I've said it before, this is the best squad of players this club has ever had. They've done remarkably well, not just this season and the back end of last season, but for 3 years. And the first couple of seasons, our results were not reflective of our performances. And the players are improving all the time. They work really well together. It's an unbelievable spirit within the camp, and they're always willing to learn and improve. And so I'm very hopeful that with Roberto, a new coach, new ideas, a lot of similarities, but there will be differences, and there will be new opportunities for them to thrive. So I think it's a really, really exciting time for Roberto, for our players and for the club as well.
Now, Andrew Crofts obviously didn't get to take that game at Bournemouth. Events overtook that elsewhere, and understandably so. But they've been in safe hands for the last few weeks. But he'll be important now, I guess, for Roberto coming in to help him acclimatise and introduce him to that squad of players and Brighton Hove Albion.
Well, Andrew Crofts is a really important part of this club, and he's done a really good job those last couple of weeks. While we were waiting, we were finding a new head coach. So that continuity is really important. I mean, Crofty's been a part of the club for many, many years. He knows it inside out. He knows the players. So he will be a very important conduit for Roberto. And I really feel for him that he wasn't able to take the game against Bournemouth because the players were ready, he was ready. But circumstances dictated, in my opinion, the right decision. But unfortunately, there are some things much bigger than football. And so that game had to be postponed. But yeah, really, really impressed with everything that Crofty's done.
And you talk about circumstances much bigger than football. Your new head coach knows that. His last job, Shakhtar Donetsk, cut short because of the events in Ukraine. But stories emerging of him staying in Ukraine to make sure all his players got home to their respective countries safely. That says a lot about him, not just as a football coach, but as a person as well. I suspect you would have been quite impressed by that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the events which have been going on in Ukraine are horrific, and it must have been an exceptionally difficult time for him and his staff and the players, for all of the players. But obviously there was a lot of foreign players, and he absolutely would not leave Kiev until he knew that all of the foreign players were out and were safe. And it absolutely shows a lot about the man, about the person.
And finally, you must be really excited as we go into this next phase of games. Baptism of fire, as some would call it, away at Liverpool and home to Tottenham. It's a tough first month, but you must be really looking forward to the games coming up.
Well, that's what the Premier League's all about. And yes, away at Liverpool, home to Spurs, is a difficult, very difficult start for Roberto. He will be prepared. I mean, obviously the next few days he's missing a lot of players on international duty, but he will be absolutely ready and prepared, and we look forward to that game against Liverpool and the rest of the season with a lot of excitement.